Well, good morning again to everyone, and good morning to those who have just joined. It's about 9:05, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Nicole Hall. I'm the Business Development Manager for Restaurant Retail at the Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation. We're so excited that you joined us today for our Retail Bootcamp as part of our Emerge Stronger series, which is a co-partnership with the EDC of Prince George's County, Bowie BIC, as well as FSC First. We have a dynamic presentation here today for you from Deanna McIntosh. She is the Global Retail and E-commerce Consultant for the Affinity Group International. And she's just going to give you a wealth of knowledge and information to really help your business through the pandemic as well as post-pandemic to really be successful as a retailer in Prince George's County. First and foremost, we just want to let everyone know that this session will be recorded, as this program will be emailed out to you post today's presentation, along with the retail workbook that will coincide and give you some additional activities in follow through in conjunction with this presentation. Just some general housekeeping rules. As I said, I'm Nicole Hall. I will be your moderator for today. Deanna's going to present the content, but I will be here to kind of help facilitate the meeting overall. The key rules here is to really think positive, just be open to all the information that you're going to hear today. Deanna has a wealth of experience and knowledge in the industry, and she's put together a wonderful presentation for you to really help you build programs and operations for your business to help insulate you for the long term from any external threats like COVID shutdowns, competitor threats that are really going to help you in a long-term strategy. So at the end of this 4-week series, we really hope that you have a strategic plan that you can implement in 2021, right? So just some general housekeeping rules. Think positive. We're going to have you on mute just so we can keep the presentation flowing and stay on time. There will be portions of the presentation that will allow for questions and answers. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll get to them during those scheduled times, okay? In the meantime, everyone will remain on mute. If you definitely take notes as you have throughout the session, and please present them at the breaks that we have scheduled, or at the end, we'll have additional time for a Q&A. If we don't get to your question, my email address is at the bottom of the screen here, and I'll email that out as well. But please feel free to email me. As a business development manager, I'm first and foremost here to be a resource to you as a business in the county. So whether it's for this session or you want to touch base with me after this presentation, please feel free to email me, introduce yourself, and let's start that dialogue, okay? Well, great, well, perfect. Now we're going to introduce Deanna McIntosh, our presenter today. We're so excited. And she's going to kick it off with introducing herself.
Good morning. I am Deanna McIntosh. As she mentioned, I'm the Global Retail and E-commerce Consultant at the Affinity Group International. And I also have a community for small brands and retailers called Retailing Evolved that I'm actively in. And I call myself a semi-Georgia native because I was born here in Atlanta, grew up in Virginia, went to school in New York, moved to Florida for about 8 years, but now I'm back here in Atlanta. So I kind of am a native. And I've been in this industry for 14 plus years, and in many different capacities. I was a buyer responsible for a $117 million business all the way up to $2 billion business. I have bought ink, toner, printers, stationery, apparel, lighting fixtures. So I have a broad outlook of the industry from a retail, e-commerce, and wholesale perspective. My motto is retail is not dead, it has evolved. Anywhere you find me, you will hear me say that 50 million times because it's true. And small businesses are the future of retail. They actually make up 98% of the industry. And so that's why I'm passionate about equipping you guys with the same sales driving strategies and processes that I use as a buyer, as an art director, all my different titles that I've had throughout my career. So now I give you those same tools that I use at those companies to use in your own business to make sure that you're building a foundation for sustainable growth. And lastly, traveling is my number one source of inspiration. If you've never been outside the country after COVID's over, I suggest to definitely do that. You'll just get so much inspiration for how other people do things, how they work, how they live, how they eat, how they merchandise, what their stores look like. And if you don't know this already, basically everywhere else in the world is light years ahead of the US as far as trends. So just taking a trip to Paris or London, Tokyo will put you probably 3 years ahead of everyone else here as far as trends and colors and things that are futuristic. And on the right hand side of the screen, you can see just some of the companies that I've worked for in my career. But now I work for you, small businesses. What is merchandising? Yeah, I want you guys to put in the chat what you think merchandising actually is. So just put it in the chat, whatever you think, whatever comes to mind when you think about merchandising. And I always do that because I find that most people don't know what that is at all, but it's a really, really, really important piece of your business. So let me tell you what merchandising is. Merchandising is the core of every product-based business, and it's defined as having the right products at the right time, at the right price, at the right place, with the right promotion, with the right people. And if it sounds familiar, that's because it sounds like the 5 P's of marketing, which is true. However, marketing is people facing. Remember, you're trying to get your products to the people, but merchandising is product facing. So you're trying to get your products to the people. So merchandising is getting your products to your people. Marketing is getting your people to your products. Hope that makes sense. But it's critical that you understand this because all large businesses, retailers, and brands are run by their merchandising departments. So if you never heard of that word, you're literally missing the core of your entire business. And this slide kind of explains what that means. So from today forward, you need to look at yourself as the head merchant for your business. The merchant's job, so my job as a buyer, art director, was to make money, right? And it seems simple, but my job is to make sure you're profitable, to make sure you have the right inventory, to make sure you're pricing your products correctly, right? And so that's your job now. You're the head merchant, you're in charge. So if you think of a company like a Macy's, for example, they're run by their buyers, their merchandisers, that merchandising department. So any decisions in that entire company, they start and end with that merchant. So that's how you need to look at your business. And if you look at the chart on the right-hand side, so you are that center, right? You're that head merchant. And this is the way that merchant, you, work with all of these different departments in your business. Granted, if you're a person of one, a team of 10, it doesn't matter. You still have to go through all of these different stages in your business to make sure that everything's working together and making you money. So the first step as for you as a merchant is to work with your merchandising planners, which in the next class, the financial strategy, this part will make a lot more sense. But you can't start doing things and executing if you don't have a plan, right? So your first step is to work with that merchandising planner. That person is going to tell you, okay, you want to hit $5 million this year. Let's say that's your goal. Well, what does that actually look like? So you would work with that person to say, well, out of that 5 million, 2 million is going to go to women's, 3 million is going to go to men's. Then you break that down again. You know, maybe 500,000 is going to go to jeans, you know, and then the rest is going to go to tops. But you're breaking it down into the like most granular level so that you understand exactly what you need to do to hit your sales plans. And that's a new way of thinking and doing things, but we're going to go over that next week or the next session. So after that, you have your numbers together, you know exactly what your sales plans are. The products. You have to sell products to make money. So now you're talking to your design and development team. If you are the one who actually makes your own products, And now you're talking about colors and trends and fabrics. So you guys work together to see what products make up those sales that you need to hit. Then after that, you're talking to your production team, your sourcing team, working with your vendors to make sure that those products come to life. Or if you don't buy your own products, then you're going to trade shows, right? You're going to Magic, you're going to America's Mart to find those products that are going to hit those sales goals. And again, you're the center of all this. So you're directing everything that's happening and making sure that your team is working together. So then after that, you're working with your visual merchandising team. And if you're e-commerce only, you should still have a visual merchandising strategy, because what that means is when I come to your website, I should have a seamless experience from top to bottom. I should be able to search for whatever I need. Your menu should guide me to what I should be looking for, and so forth. And so you're working with that team to say, we have all these new products coming in. They need to be placed here on my website, or they need to be placed here in the store, and so forth. And then marketing. Now you're working with your marketing team because you are leading the messaging. So if you have a new collection of jeans coming out, you're telling that marketing team, these are the messages that we want to promote. These are the items that we want to promote, and putting together actual campaigns that you can measure against your sales. And lastly, customer service. So after everything is done, you need to talk to the people, your customer service team or your employees who are going to sell the products. So you're going to teach them about the new products, their features, their benefits. If you have products that these new products are replacing, you're going to talk to them about that to make sure you're still keeping those sales. So I hope all that makes sense. And I'm sure if you're a team of one, you probably haven't looked at your business this way. And even if you're a team of 20, I had a client who did $60 million a year, and they had a couple of these teams, but they had no merchandising person. And so they hired me to come in and help them because they had a design team, they had a production team, they didn't have merchandise planning, but they had customer service in a warehouse, but no merchandiser. So that means that all these different departments were operating independently, and then just hopefully they had a collection that was cohesive at the end of the day, which never happened because they didn't have that person tying it together. So you are that person. So I hope merchandising makes more sense now. It's just making sure that everything that you're doing coordinates with each other and ties back to your sales plan. And that's the perspective that I'm speaking from when I'm teaching. All right, so I always have to start every presentation off with a quote. I'm a very optimistic person, a forward-thinking person, and I would love for you to be that way too, because you're gonna need to be to get through what we're all dealing with COVID and just being an entrepreneur in general. So this quote is, you can't solve a problem on the same level that it was created. You have to rise above it to the next level. So if you think about that, COVID hit. We all know by now what the impact has been on our business, but you can't solve that problem if we just sit here and keep talking about all the negative things. You have to rise above what's going on to look up, look around you, see what's going to happen, the future of retail, and rise above what's going on to get to that next level. Here are the topics that we're going to cover today. Your store's 2020 vision, seeing past the current situation again and creating your vision for the rest of this year. Who you are and who you serve, your target customer, because you're nothing without them, can't make money without them. Your core values as an organization. So who are you? Like, what are your values? What do you stand for? And then lastly, your sales channels. So your current sales channels and then future ones that you want to explore. All right, so what is your 2020 vision? What do you envision your business to be like by the end of this year? Might be hard to figure that out because of all that's going on, but that's what these classes are going to solve for you. At the end of these 4, you should be crystal clear about what your strategy is. So just make sure that you're engaged and you are really, don't think about right now, think about the future And that's what we're planning for. I also want you to start thinking about how you currently track your goals in your plans. So right now, I know for me personally, I use ClickUp to track all of my projects, all of my goals, everything. Some people use notebook and paper, but I want you to kind of figure out how you're going to start tracking to what we're going to be talking about. And we have the workbook, and it's really cool. It's like jam-packed with information, but it's going to help you lay out all these things that we're talking about. Literally pretty much everything on this page. So for the rest of this year, you're going to want to think about setting goals for new sales channels, meaning new money, new sources of income, new product categories, vendor relationships, engagement rates, and then numeric goals. Numbers are super important. So not only do you need sales goals, but you need dollars per transaction goals, new customers, conversion rates, things like that. And in the workbook, you're going to actually write out what your 2020 vision is and then set a couple of these goals. And something that I love to say nowadays is you can't set goals that you haven't set. You can't hit goals you haven't set. So definitely think big. So again, in your workbook after the class, you'll write down in 4 sentences or less your 2020 vision for your shop. And it should really drive you and motivate you to get through the rest of this year and thrive, right? So think boldly. Don't give yourself small little goals. If you want to hit 200K by the end of this year, then write that down. Don't be scared to do it, because then the next step is to make those steps to get there. And as I mentioned, when you're thinking about tracking your goals and your projects, here's just some popular project management tools. Like I said, I use ClickUp, but Asana is great. Trello is okay. There's a bunch of these different ones. But if you're a super anal project manager like me, ClickUp is your go-to. All right. So who are you? This is a big one. I think when I talk to a lot of business owners and I say, what's wrong? Like, what do you think you could do better in your business? The first response is always marketing. Like, I need to market better. But what a lot of people don't understand, and once I start looking into the business, I'm like, actually, your problem is not marketing, because you don't even know who your target customer is. So you can spend all this money on ads, but if you don't know who you're marketing to, or if your branding is not clear, or you're not being trustworthy, you're wasting your money. So marketing is not the answer all the time. So the first step is like, who are you as a brand? How can we define your brand? What is your design aesthetic, right? So what is your color palette? What's your style? What problems are you solving? And then who are you solving them for? And it seems like, simple questions, but there's so many businesses who get this wrong. And they struggle and they struggle and they struggle, and they pay thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in ads for nothing. Because again, you can have a beautiful ad, but if I come to your website and it's not trustworthy, or it looks like you just slapped it together, you're not going to get my business. So you always have to make sure that you're telling a true story with your brand. And so in the workbook, what you're going to do is describe who your brand is and what you do in 2 sentences. And it's kind of like an elevator pitch, so to speak, but that's how crystal clear you should be about your brand, is that you can describe it in 2 sentences and I'll know exactly what you are and what you do. And then after that, you're going to list your brand values and pillars. And what that means, so we could reference right now what's going on in our country with racial injustice, right? And a lot of companies have come out and made these blanket statements or didn't say anything at all. But now diversity and inclusion is like, all of a sudden everyone's top pillar in their agenda or their top brand value, diversity and inclusion. But have you ever stopped to think about what your own values are in your company? So is it sustainability? Is that important to you? Diversity and inclusion, is that important to you? So you really want to think about that, because as you saw, and you could be one of those customers, Now, if I go to a brand's Instagram page, for example, to check them out, I'm scrolling back to see if they've said anything about racial injustice. And if they haven't, I'm not shopping there. Same applies to you. So just make sure that you really understand who you are and what you stand for, because customers are going to start paying even more attention to that. So let's get to know each other. In the chat box, if you're comfortable, why don't you just put in those 2 sentences? So who you are and what you do. And I'll go and put mine in there. But I hope everyone will do it. So again, who you are and what you do. Okay, give everybody a couple, one more minute or so, but I'm Deanna McIntosh, Global Retail and E-commerce Consultant. I help indie brands and retailers drive sales by equipping them with the same strategies and tools as billion-dollar brands. So hopefully that's clear. So you should be that crystal clear about your business. So you can go ahead and put in yours and we'll keep going. But I'm really excited to get to know you all. All right. And again, you'll put those 2 sentences in your notebook if you're not ready to share yet. So this part is really, really important. I'd be curious to know how many of you started your business with a business plan. I would guess usually it's like no one when I ask that question when I'm presenting. So, but this is the part of the business plan that is so critical because it really answers the question, do you even have a viable business? Because, just because you're passionate about clothes doesn't mean that opening a boutique for you is a viable business. And so really you open a business, the most successful businesses at least exist because they solve a problem and they solve it better than anybody else. And so with your business, in your workbook, you're going to list 3 problems in the market that your business solves, minimum of 3. And kind of think about it as like, was there a lack of resource or a lack of options, for example, for plus size people? That's a huge market that I'm sure is going to blow up in the next couple years, even more so, because of the lack of options there. Was there a lack of inclusiveness, lack of a certain price for a product? So what 3 problems do you solve? And the better you answer these questions, the more competitive your business will be. And then after you have those 3 problems, what are your 3 solutions to those problems? So, problem 1, here it is. And here are my 3 solutions to that one problem. So you should have 9 solutions total at least. Again, if you struggle with this part, you can't come up with 3 solutions that you provide to each problem, you're not as competitive as you need to be, right? And that means it's going to be easy for a competitor to come in and snatch your market share because you don't solve the problem as well as you should. So definitely take a lot of time to think about this piece. And I see you guys have responded to the question. So I'm going to take a second and look really quick. Nice. Nice. Awesome. So nice to meet you guys. All right. So again, just think a while about those opportunities and solutions to make sure that your business is competitive. Competitive. Great segue. Who is your competition? A lot of people will ask me, well, my product is so unique. I don't think I really have a competitor. I mean, is it possible for me to not have a competitor? No, it's not possible. Everyone has a competitor. Everyone. So and it could be an indirect competitor or a direct competitor. For me, a direct competitor is somebody who has the same exact target market as you and selling pretty much a similar product. Indirect is a different target customer, but like it's the same target customer but a similar product, right? So it's kind of like it's not direct competition, but they could still take your market share. I hope that makes sense. So now that you've defined the problems you solve, how you solve them, and who you solve them for, now you need to define what other businesses are solving these same problems for your target customer. Okay. And again, you might have to search the internet to find out who those people are. But you want to, three is my favorite number, clearly. But you're going to list three competitors in your workbook and then explain those three reasons why you're different than each of them. Again, if you can't come up with three reasons why you're different than each of your competitors, you have to. Like, if you can't, then you need to go back to the drawing board, go back to those problems and see if maybe you missed a problem or something like that, or you need to elaborate on your solutions. Because if you don't have three reasons why you're different than your competitor, I don't know if you're building a business that's going to last you and be around for 10 years. Because again, it's going to be easy for somebody else to come in and swoop you. And not to be negative, I'm just trying to get you to like really, really, really build something that's competitive, that's going to last, because you're the future of retail. So that's how you build and become that future of retail, by building a company that's indestructible. Now this part is my favorite. So who do you serve? Who is your target customer? So why don't you guys put in the chat who your target customer is? Doesn't have to be super long, but tell me who your target customer is. And I'll wait for a second to get a chance to respond. Okay. And something that I'm asked often too is, well, how can I only have one target customer? Maybe you sell shoes, I don't know, and you sell really cute, super sleek stilettos, but then you also sell like clogs or something. And those are two different customers, right? Well, you have to only have one target customer that you're going after. And here's why. When you think about marketing, when you think about everything that you do, you really are doing it with one specific person in mind. So yes, that person who wears the clogs might come along, but that's not necessarily your target. And you just have other areas of your business that you expand to get extra income and extra customers, but it might not be your target specifically. An example that I had recently is I had a client who sells waist beads, and I asked her before we started working together, "Who's your target customer?" And she shows me a picture of a really slender, like beautiful, like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills type person. Had that picture, and then she's like, "But Lizzo also likes waist beads." And I'm like, both of those are not your target customer. You can in one ad, in your website, in your messaging, you cannot be talking to a Real Housewife of Beverly Hills and Lizzo. Like that, no. So if the Beverly Hills woman is your target customer, everything that you're doing is focused on her and you're speaking to her. Now, if Lizzo decides that she likes your products and she wants to buy them, that's great, but she's not your target, right? She's just an extra bonus. And so that's just because, again, to make sure that you're cohesive, everything that you do is cohesive. And so when we talk about your target customer, we're looking at it from a merchandising perspective. So we're going to look at it by product. So saying you can't design or buy the right products without knowing your customer's lifestyle. We're going to look at it from the price perspective. So you can't price your products without knowing what your customer's resistance is to certain prices. We're going to look at place. You don't know where you're going to have your store or your warehouse or participating in pop-up shops if you don't know your customer's lifestyle and where they are. And then lastly, promotion. Again, you cannot market your products and promote them without knowing your customer shopping habits and their lifestyle. And let's see, I see some people have said target customer. Let's see what you guys are saying. Nice. Cool. And a lot of times when I ask about, who your target customer, I'll get, a woman, age 35 who likes to shop and she's trendy. That's not deep enough because that's a lot of people's target customer. It's not deep enough and it's not going to help you when you're trying to market or trying to figure out where to find new sales channels. And I will show you why right now. So we'll go through all the P's of marketing and break down how you're going to look at who your target customer is so that you can make clear decisions. How old is this person? What do they do in their spare time? What other brands does this person shop? That's important. And a trick with that is, let's say your target customer shops at Ann Taylor, like that's one of your competitors. Go when COVID's over, go to Ann Taylor and look and see what other shopping bags people have. Guarantee you that they're going to have a J. Crew shopping bag, Banana Republic shopping bag. Why? Because those are all competitors of each other. So go into any store that could be considered a competitor of yours and see what everybody's shopping bags are. That'll tell you immediately who you're up against. So when your customer shops, do they buy multiple things at a time from you? Or are they just shopping randomly and piecemealing? Because that answer will tell you how you should buy things and how you should promote things, right? So when you're buying products, if they're buying multiple things at a time, then you should be buying in collections or creating collections of items versus if it's something like a Best Buy, like if that's a competitor of yours or your tech store, people come looking for something specific. So you don't really have to think about making collections of laptops, things like that. So when your customer comes, again, are they shopping by outfit or item? If you're a clothing store, for example, or just coming in for something specific, because that's going to tell you a lot. And I think someone sells hair care. So what's their hair care routine like, or their skincare routine? Is there a lack of something important to them? So you should be able to answer all these questions in great detail so that you make sure that the products that you're bringing in are aligned with what your customer actually wants. Sounds simple, but yeah, not as simple as you think. Price. This is a really big one. What is your customer's annual income? Because they can make $200,000 a year, but what percent of that is actually disposable that they can willingly spend? Because that could be 50,000 for whatever reason. Maybe they have a lot of student loans or a lot of debt or something. What percent of their income is disposable? Because that's the income that you would be able to have from them shopping at your store. right? What other brands does this person shop? Again, because if this person is shopping luxury, but your brand isn't a luxury brand, that's not your customer. Or if you're marketing that you're a luxury brand, but your products don't hit more than $50, there's a disconnect. So your price, like, does your customer value price? Do they value convenience? Do they value quality? These are all things that are really important, because somebody who shops at Forever 21, you know what they expect. They expect low prices. They don't expect high quality. They don't expect, I don't know, Hermes quality, right? They expect convenience, to be able to come in and out, get what they need. So what is it that they value? Because your pricing needs to match that. And again, there's a lot of questions that are repeated because they apply to multiple different P's. So this one, do they shop by outfit or item, coming in for something random? How does that relate to price? Because maybe you need to bundle price things. If they're coming in for multiple things at a time, then you need to create bundle packages if that's how they're buying. If you're looking at your sales, you'll be able to know that. So that's something to think about. And also, I'll give you a tip that you really need to look at your prices. And something that's common is to end your pricing all in the same number. Like, so if, let's say, you want everything to end in a 7, so 97, 67, 57, that's going to help save you margin, gross margin, so profit. For example, if you have a product that, according to however you price, but if there's a product that technically, if you're doing like a keystone markup with 2, if your product should really be 54, but since you're ending everything in 7s, you're marking it at 57, you just saved $3. You made $3, right? And then it makes your pricing just so much more simple. It makes your website look more cohesive. It just makes you seem like a stronger brand. And you can go to any of the specialty store websites and you'll see that. At Chico's, we did that. Ann Taylor does it. J. Crew does it. And then the other thing is, if you end your product in a 9, there's a psychological thing that it makes people think that they're saving money. I'm sure you've seen it. Would you rather pay 99 cents or $1? So that gives the customer a perception of a sale or like getting a bargain. Again, if that's who your customer is, and that's fine. But you'll never see Hermes in their products in a 9 unless if the item's on sale or on clearance. So you just make sure that you're really thinking about your customer on that deep of a level. All right, and then place. Where does your customer live? What do they do in their spare time? What's their career? And where do they shop primarily? Online, store, on their phones, tablets, or desktop. And when you're thinking about having a physical location, obviously you need to know if your customer actually lives in the place that you want to put your store. And what are they doing in their spare time? If your customer has kids and goes to the park on the weekends, then maybe you should put yours somewhere a park or something like that. Also, if your customer works in a city like downtown area and you sell a lot of workwear, you should probably be downtown. So just making sure that the place that you select aligns with who your target customer is. In promotion, again, what other brands does your target customer shop? I'll give you an example with Office Depot. When I was buying, what was I buying? Ink. Boring. Ink. We always knew what Staples was doing, always. And we actually looked at, so the vendors, so HP would tell us, like, we had the promotions, any promotion that you see basically from HP at Office Depot is planned ahead of time. Like, they tell you, this is going to be your promotion this week. So we run the same promotions as Staples at the same time, but we know that. But then we can also layer, if Staples is doing, if both of us are doing buy one, get one 50% off on ink, well, then we'll also layer on plus $10 in reward so that we can one up them, right? So you always have to know who your target customer is shopping so you can make sure you're being competitive with them at all times. And then again, where are they shopping? Because maybe your customer shops a lot more on mobile than they do on your desktop. Well, what does that mean? Do you do text message marketing? Because if they're shopping on their phone, they're always looking at their phone. So you should also have other ways to reach them on their phone. And how often do they shop with you? If your customer shops with you once a month, your promotions are going to look a little different than if the customer's on your website every other day, right? There's going to be a different sense of urgency. And why do they shop you? This is super, super important that you should know and have multiple answers for, really, because the reason why they shop you is your competitive advantage. And that is what you should be using in all of your marketing materials. So why do they shop you? And also, what would make them never shop you again? No one wants to think about that. But there are certain things, I'm sure, in your own life that killer did, you would never shop them again. For example, not speaking up against racial injustice. That would make me not want to shop someone ever again. Or if I had a bad experience, or if they have a terrible return policy. What are those things that would make them never shop you again so you can make sure that never happens? So these are just, I think there's about 15 of these questions that we've gone through that you just really, really have to hone in on and make sure you're super clear. When COVID hit is a great example. There's a lot of businesses who really struggle because they didn't know what to say. There's so many people who are like, well, I don't know if I want to sell right now. I don't know if this is the best time. Business didn't stop. So what you do in times like this is go back to these questions. Well, why did your customer shop you in the first place? Why do they like you? What do you bring to the table? What problem do you solve? Because that problem didn't probably go away just because COVID happened. Now is the time for you to remind them of all these things. Well, don't forget, this is what I solved. I solved this problem for you. So yes, COVID's here, but I'm still solving your problems. So you should still shop with me. That's how you have to really think about it. And this part is creepy, but you have to do it. So after you've answered all these questions about your target customer, you actually have to give them a face and a name. And I mean, literally going on the internet and finding a picture of what your target customer will look like. And I will tell you why it's so important. And all the big brands, their target customer has a face and a name. Seriously. At Chica's, I forget the name. I wish I could remember. But let's say her name was Tiffany. When we go to trade shows or when we're talking to the design team, we're like, yeah, I like this style, but Tiffany wouldn't buy this because Tiffany likes styles that have short sleeves. She won't wear sleeveless because she doesn't like her arms. But, and we'll just go into this whole conversation about Tiffany. But it's easy to talk about your target customer when you can envision them as a person, like as an entire person sitting next to you. Then it becomes alive and it becomes ingrained into everything that you do and you think. That's why you have to do that. Another example is if you're buying, let's say, you carry coffee mugs in your shop, and your target customers are a working mom, a busy mom. What's important to busy moms? Not a mom yet, but I would think that being very mobile, being flexible, things that aren't going to break, things that are going to travel well is important to this person. So if I go to a trade show and I see this really, really cool mug, something like out of this world that I've never seen before, and it's just, I know it'd be amazing, that's fine, but it doesn't fit into a car cup holder. I can't buy it because as cool as it is, my customer, it's not a fit for her. Like, it's a nice to have. It's not a must have, and she probably won't buy it because it doesn't fit her lifestyle. So if you know your target customer, that becomes so clear and you don't make as many inventory mistakes as if you're just guessing on what your customer would want. Something else that I've seen is a lot of boutique owners on Instagram will post things and say, well, do you like this? And put polls up in their stories and things like that. And with that, I'll say that it's nice to get your customers' opinions. That's fine. But you have to remember that they're coming to you for your perspective, for your expertise, like not the other way around. They need guidance from you. That's the point of you being in business. So, yes, you ask them for their opinion, but they vote with their dollars. If something's not selling in your store, that's because they don't like it. And you should be able to look at your sales well enough to understand why they didn't like it. For example, maybe they didn't like it because they liked shirts with 3 buttons instead of 4. And that seems stupid, but it's literally that's how well we drill down to our data when I was a buyer. Like she might have liked this pink cotton t-shirt, but she didn't like the pink wool shirt. Or like the 3-button placket is great on a button-up shirt, but if it's covered, it sells more. So that's literally just how well you have to know your target customer, and it'll come with time and studying your sales, but definitely give them a face and a name, and don't be afraid to talk about them. When you go to the trade show, walk around and act like Tiffany's standing right next to you, and it'll help you make better decisions. All right, so now you know who you are, who you serve, what do you look like? So if someone asked your customer to describe your store, what words would they use? And you'll put this in your workbook, but if you want to put it in your chat, you can. So what are 5 words that somebody would use to describe your store? So is it inspirational, energetic? What are those 5 words? And what type of lifestyle imagery would you say is on brand for you? So just think about that part. And lifestyle imagery meaning like what you see pictured. So someone in their natural environment, not something that's staged. And also, what is your color palette? So what colors make up your branding? And then what is your brand's tone of voice? Example is, is it Wendy's? I think Wendy's and Burger King on Twitter are always like going back and forth and making slick comments about each other. I think it's them, so they have a different tone of voice than like a fashion brand. And this fashion brand that's pictured is called Cult Gaia. Their tone of voice and their branding is way different than a Fashion Nova, for example. So, like, who is your brand? What do you look like? What type of lifestyle imagery is on brand for you? If someone sees this dress, for example, if they see this dress and someone's wearing it walking down the street, do they know that's Cult Gaia? Like, is your brand that identifiable? Because it should be. And this is Cult Gaia. So this picture of the woman in the green dress is from their website. This is their Instagram feed in the middle, and then this is one of the pictures and with a comment on it. So you can kind of see their tone of voice. But as you'll see, it's the same feel across all their different platforms. You can kind of see like the models' poses, they repeat the same models, everything looks familiar. This is so important for your branding and creating trust with your customers. If I go to your Instagram, I want to see that the pictures, the way you talk, is the same way as on your website. It's the same way as if you send me a text message, send me an email, any interaction that somebody has with your brand, that should be cohesive no matter where they are. So if I shop your store in person, that same experience should be mirrored online. And then the last part, which is where do you currently operate? And I want to make this distinction because A lot of people don't get this part. So retail, when we say the word retail, a lot of people think that that just means brick and mortar. That's incorrect. So retail is this entire industry. It's selling goods. Okay. Brick and mortar is a channel of retail. E-commerce is a channel of retail. So it's a channel. So there's no such thing as like if someone says, you're a retailer, you're a retailer. It doesn't matter if you have an e-commerce store or a brick and mortar store, you're a retailer. I just want to make that really, really clear. So when we ask, where do you currently operate, which retail sales channels? Brick and mortar is a sales channel. E-commerce, selling online, is a sales channel. Wholesale. So if you make your own products and you want to sell them to retailers to sell in their stores, that's wholesale. Marketplaces. If you're selling your goods through an online storefront that you've created on Etsy, eBay, Amazon, that's another sales channel. Private label. If you have created your own product lines and you're selling it exclusively, well, not even really selling, but like developing it exclusively for a retailer. So no branding of yours, it's exclusively theirs. That's private label. Chico's is an example of that. They only sell and manufacture their own products. J. Crew's another one. And also want to mention white labeling is different than private label. White labeling is where you buy products from a manufacturer and you take out their tags and put in your own. That's white labeling. And there's a lot of boutique owners who do that. Drop shipping, which I'm sure you've heard of, that is when you have no inventory responsibility at all. If someone places an order on your website, that order is then sent to the vendor and the vendor ships it to your customer. So you don't touch it. No control over the quality, nothing. That's drop shipping. And then lastly, social selling. So selling your goods on social media platforms such as Instagram. And when you look at all these channels in your workbook, it's going to ask you to mark which channels you're currently selling in. And then later you'll start to explore some of these channels to add extra streams of revenue inside of your business. And we'll just look at an example so you can see different sales channels. Calvin Klein. They literally sell in every single sales channel that I mentioned except drop shipping. And I am not sure, I wouldn't think that they drop ship, but I didn't find an example of that. Calvin Klein has brick and mortar stores, both for their full price stores and outlets. They sell on marketplaces. As you'll see in the middle of the screen, they have their own Amazon store. They have their own e-commerce website. They sell private label because they sell their own goods in their own store. They wholesale. You can find them in Macy's, Bloomingdale's, so forth. They sell on social. Check them out on Instagram. So 1, 2, 3, 4. They have 6 sales channels and probably have even more that we don't even know about. That's an example. So COVID really exposed the importance of selling in more than one channel, because when brick and mortar stores were closed, customers could quickly shift to driving all that business online or doing buy online, pick up in store, which is what we'll talk about in the omni-channel strategy class. But you must operate in multiple sales channels. It's a non-negotiable. So again, this is what I mean by being future thinking, forward thinking. Because if you have just an e-commerce store right now, you're going to have to start thinking about what else you want to do. And I especially want to encourage people who have their own products. It's like really important that you do wholesale as well. Now, every brand is not wholesale ready or wholesale right, but a lot are. And wholesale is a great way to scale your business. Because again, when you're thinking about wholesale, you're not selling one piece to one person like you are at retail. You're selling packs of 20, 30, 50 to multiple people. So you could quickly see how far and how wide you could grow by doing wholesale. Okay. And here's another example. Black and Green, it's actually one of my clients, but here are all the sales channels that they operate in right now. E-commerce, they have their own site. They don't have a brick and mortar and they're not in marketplaces right now, but they do private label, which as you can see from this picture, this is a bag that they sell on their site, which is their own brand. And that's another way to make additional money, is to create your own private label collection. And you can do that by utilizing small businesses, which we'll get into in the supply chain class. But private label always gives you more margin. More margin is more money for you. When you're buying at wholesale, it depends on the product category, of course. But when you buy at wholesale, let's just say on average, you're getting a 50% margin. So you're keeping 50% of the profit. With private label, or like 75%, even 80%. And again, the product category differs. So would you like 50% of the profits or 75 or 80%? You do the math. So you can sprinkle private label products into your assortment. Things like candles, super easy to private label. Organic tote bags, little things are the easiest to get started with at least. And then eventually you could grow your entire store to be only your brand. All right. And then you can start wholesaling. All right, so we went over a lot of stuff today, but it's all going to be in your workbook. So don't worry about that. These are all the millions of things that you're going to work on between now and the next class. So you can go through all this in your workbook. I'm going to skip through that. And let's get to some question and answer about any of the things that we talked about today.
Well, thank you, Deanna. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Any questions? One question that just popped up. Kiki Strickland, welcome. She asked a question. She sells travel, so she's wondering how can some of the branding strategies you discussed apply to her?
So these branding strategies apply to anyone who has a business. And when you're selling travel, that's still, you're still selling something. And you really should consider selling products so that, for example, if you're selling a trip to Bali, I don't know, like you could have a whole like welcome to Bali package that you sell, like actual products that you sell to them for them to take on their trip. And so you're just, branding applies to everyone and anybody. You have to make sure you're super clear on your target customer, what they want, what problems you solve for them, and so forth. So it absolutely applies. And selling actual products, again, could be an extension of what you already do so that you have multiple streams of income coming in within your business. Hope that makes sense.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. Any other questions?
Anybody else?
Deanna, can you just go over some of the activity points in the exercises in the workbook, for example? So about branding and building that target customer and that visual.
Yeah, can you see the workbook?
Yes.
So this is the workbook that you guys are gonna get. And it's divided up just like the class. So you'll see these little boxes that you can type into to fill out the work. And some inspiration, because I told you I love quotes. Brand strategies. So This is what we talked about, making sure you
Hmm.
can define your brand and your aesthetic so you'll fill that in, and how you'll track to your goals in your project, your brand values. So you'll want to have at least 3 pillars, the opportunities and solutions that we talked about, making sure you can really be clear on that, your competitors. Here's all the questions that we went through about your target customer. So on the next page, you'll write your description of your target customer, but as you're writing, you can go through and just make sure you're answering all these questions and check them off like this. And your branding aesthetic that we talked about, making sure who that is, what you are is super clear. And the sales channels. So if you are currently selling or future selling, you'll click those off. I think, and that's it. So everything we talked about is in your workbook to help you work through it and really start to think bigger about your business.
Perfect, perfect. And then in your experience, what has been the biggest challenge, even outside of COVID, for businesses to really do this exercise? What is the biggest hurdle that they've come across to really understand who their target customer is or how to rebrand their company?
I think not thinking big enough. There's, yeah, here's how I try to frame it. It's like who do you want to be?
Mm.
Do you want to be a brand that's going to be cool for Instagram right now? Because that's not going to last. Or do you want to be a brand that people are talking about all around the world? Or, that can be promoted to anywhere and anyone. Like people have your name in their mouth. Like, who do you want to be? And for boutique owners, for example, there's a lot of bad information out there. I think that's another thing. There's a lot of wrong information out there. Prime example is when people first start. I'm going to tell you what you should do to build your business as like a $1 billion brand from the beginning. Like, I'm not going to tell you that you should take pictures of yourself in the clothes that you sell and put it on your website. I'm not going to tell you that ever.
I see that a lot now.
Yes, I will never ever tell you to do that, because yes, we can start small, but why? Why start off looking like everyone else? And that makes you look amateurish, right? And I think what I have to do is then say, well, who's your favorite brand? And a lot of people will say like, well, House of CB. So I said, okay, let's go to House of CB website. Do you see the owner in any of these pictures? Like, no. Like on their Instagram, do you see the owner? No. So then it's like, oh, like, yes, that's next level. That's how you need to look at your business. It can be done, but you have to plan. You have to know who your brand is and answer all these questions that we talked about today. You have to have a financial plan. You can have photo shoots. Yes, they're expensive, but did you lay out those expenses in your financial plan from the beginning? Probably not.
Yeah.
So it just takes like looking bigger at your business. And a lot of people tell business owners, retail business owners, you need to be the face of your brand. You need to be at the forefront. When you go to a conference and you see, let's say, the CEO of Pinterest or the founder of Pinterest at this conference, right? Is she there because she's this, or I don't even know if it's a woman, but is that person there because of the person? Are they there because they founded Pinterest? They're there because of Pinterest. It doesn't go that way. Like, nobody's going to ask you to speak because of who you are. No, they want to see your successful brand first. So it's just like very backwards. And I think people say that just to like get you to get started. But like COVID should have proved to everybody that there's no more room for like mediocrity.
Yeah.
And it sounds harsh, but there's no room for that. Like, start off with a plan and knowing what you're doing and seeing 10 years down the line, stop looking at today.
Mm-hmm.
Another example is you probably, well, maybe not, because I know I see these ads all the time where it's somebody and they're usually a woman and she's sitting in her living room and she has packages everywhere, like stacked up around her to show that she has all these orders for
Mm.
e-commerce. Have you seen those?
Yes, I've seen those. Yeah. Or cookbooks or
It
whatever they're
makes me
selling.
so mad.
Yeah.
It makes me so mad every time. Because let me tell you, so that's what people are promoting as being successful. Like I have all these orders, all these people are buying from me. But a real professional who has experience like me, I'm looking at it like you don't know what you're doing
Mm-hmm.
because you should not be packing hundreds of orders by hand at your house.
Yeah.
You should be at a fulfillment center where somebody
Mm-hmm.
else is packing those orders so that you can focus on scaling.
Yes.
So that's what I mean. Like
Mm-hmm.
those conversations aren't had, and it's just I think it's social media. I blame social media.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen this like picture of entrepreneurship that is not true. It's
Yeah.
like not true. So
One of the things I learned very early on when I was a store manager is that, and I had a senior manager tell me this because I would jump in and just do stuff around the store that my
yeah.
other clerks can do. And I
Mm,
had a senior manager come and tell me, it's like, Nicole, you're the manager of the store. There's things, yes, you can probably do every job in the store, but not everyone can do your job. So while you're doing
mm,
non income driving or gross profit driving work, uh, something is falling through the cracks because
mm.
your employees are not doing those types of tasks. Your job is
Yeah.
to do those. So
Yeah. Yeah.
filling a shelf is not marketing, or I should say merchandising, or taking a look at the inventory control levels in the store to make it more
yeah.
profitable. So
Mm,
that's a great point. I think
yeah.
um, Professor Latanya had a question.
Oh, yes.
Let me take her off mute. Trying to take her off mute.
Oh, here she now. She put it in the
Oh,
comment.
the chat. Okay.
Hi,
So
I put it in chat.
oh yeah,
Oh,
we just
okay.
saw
Now we got you. There we
it.
go. We were trying
You
to get
read
you
it.
off of mute.
Thank you for unmuting, but we can read it or I could share.
just speak. That's fine.
Sure. I
Yeah.
thought it was a great point about how you don't see the founders and see. First, thank you so much. I just want
Yeah.
to
Thank you for
acknowledge you
being
and
here.
just say thank you for offering what you have offered today. So, you brought up a very valid point about kind of looking amateurish if you
Mm,
have your CEOs and founders doing the work on social
yeah.
media. So, the example you used, if an owner has some is wearing the clothes,
Yeah.
so how would a person pivot if their Instagram is already displaying them in
Yeah.
or their social media where they just kind of make that shift? What would be your
Hmm.
recommendation to do that? Thank you.
So yeah, so you'll want to, and if you have the budget, so it's expensive to do photo shoots. I'm not gonna, but there's ways around it. But yeah, you would just start planning photo shoots, and it sounds, I know it sounds like intimidating, but it's not as hard as you might think. But think about how often you bring your new products in. For some people, maybe it's like once a quarter, they have a new collection release or something like that. So you plan a photo shoot for each of those times, for each of those launches that you have, and then figure out how many outfits you want to shoot. So then how many models you need for that, and then where you want to do it. If you want to do it in a studio, and it could be in studio and on location. So like at a, I don't know, in a park or something. But just lay all your ideas out and then put your budget together to see what you can do and plan it that way. So then you always have consistent content. And if you use influencers, if you're interested in that, that's another way. Use them, have them take pictures for you instead. So that way you're getting marketing and the images. Does that make sense?
I think we're she on
Okay.
mute. One of
Okay.
the other things I would add to that is just from a cost standpoint,
Yeah.
if you work with the same photographer and use
True.
them over and over, it's something like economies of scale. So if
Mm-hmm.
you know you're going to have 4 sessions throughout that year, you might be able to cost effectively work out a plan or budget with that
Yes.
photographer to say, hey, if you do all 4 sessions, what kind of deal can I get? Same thing with the model. So if you go back
Yeah.
to your point of what does your target customer look like? You
Mm-hmm.
may be able to use that same model or a couple of series of models
Yep.
to talk to who's that customer, so folks can have that feel of, oh, okay, that's such, I know that brand because I know that model, so to speak.
That's
Uh,
exactly. You're so right. And I
yeah.
think I'm glad you said that, because another thing is you could have a competition, or like a, not a competition, but a contest or something with your customers. So tell them to send you pictures of them in your products, or tell them to
Mhm.
tag you on Instagram so then you can repost them. I mean, that if I see your customers in your clothes
Mhm.
on your
Mhm.
social media, I'm like, okay, well, I can wear that. And then you can get a whole range of sizes and types and shapes and whatever. So yeah, just kind of think of it that way. But there's nothing wrong with you putting yourself on your feed, but it shouldn't be like all that I see.
Yeah.
And when I see a founder, well, again, it's about who you want to be.
Mhm.
So if I see a founder a lot, I'm like, okay, they're a small business. But do you really want to stay a small business? Is that what you want people to think about you? Because I've met brands who are small. It's like a team of two. But when I go to their Instagram, it looks like they've been in business for like 10 years,
Mhm.
because they have the branding and the models and all that stuff. So you can eventually phase that out, and show yourself in the stories. Maybe it's just not, don't put yourself all over your feed, but show things behind the scene in the story.
Gotcha.
Yeah, of like the real nitty gritty behind the scenes things that we don't have to see on your feed.
Yes. Yeah, one of the trends now that I've seen on social media, whether it's a retail brand of
Mhm.
service or a product, is they'll take action shots of like a
Yes,
team meeting,
yes,
or
exactly.
planning, hey, we're strategizing for 2021, or, we are planning our fall 2021 launch now,
Yes,
coming
exactly.
soon, some kind of thing. So I think those are the types of things people like to see, and like, ooh, what's
Hmm.
coming up next, and you start building that anticipation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Totally true. And
And we have probably like another, let's say 10 minutes. So
mhm.
anyone else have any questions?
And Tisa, I hope I said your name right. She said check out Shoots, SHOOTT. They have 30-minute photo shoots without a booking fee. Um, that's interesting. See, there's always something you can try. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't think I heard of them.
Hmm.
That's really cool. Mm.
And just so everyone knows, it was placed in the chat box, but this webinar has been recorded. So we will be emailing you the recording of today's presentation, as well as the adjoining workbook that will follow you throughout the 4-week series. So you'll have all of that information as a follow-up. In addition, you'll have my email address if you have any additional questions or you want to dialogue further. Next week, excuse me, in 2 weeks, we'll have the second installation of the Retail Bootcamp. Will be presented by Darlene Mitchell. It'll be our financial operations. So bring your coffee. It is a lot of great information, but to Deanna's point, you really can't grow your sales if you don't know your sales.
Yeah.
So
No.
you have to know where you are to know where you've been and where you're going. So we're really excited about the next presentation, which is going to be on Tuesday, September 22nd at 9 a.m. Same channel, same same time,
Yeah.
and it's really going to really continue along this path of building that strategic plan for your 2021 business year. So we're really excited about that next session.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if there's an additional question coming in the chat, but we're very excited. Thank you so much, Deanna. This was an amazing
Thank
kickoff
you.
to our retail boot camp. And as with the EDC, we're first and foremost a resource to our business community here in Prince George's County. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free, whether it's for the boot camp or outside of the boot camp presentation, please feel free to email me. My email will be in the follow-up email with the presentation content. So please feel free to reach out to me following, but we're excited. Is there another question? Oh, thank you, Tisa. We really thank everyone for taking this time to really invest in your business. It's great to see so many names and some faces on the pictures of those who are here today. So we thank you. And if there's no other questions, we will see you hopefully on September 22nd, Tuesday, September 22nd at 9 a.m. for our financial operations. You'll use the same workbook as it is continuous throughout the webinar series. So please bring that and do those exercises that Deanna has laid out for you as you progress along to that strategic plan. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day.